Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
I'm Wayne Butler. I'm an alcoholic. I want to thank Mike for inviting me to come share with you guys. It's been a long day. I'm glad to be here. I love AA. If you're new, I want to welcome you. It's said that you're the most important person here, besides me. I really enjoy doing this. I hope it's not out of ego. I really do. I hope it's because I believe that there's some reason people come ask me to share. More than my head. I think I've talked enough around AA that it would be fun to stay home on Friday and Saturday night and think. But when I'm doing this, it puts me in a room with people that are like me, and I get this feeling I fit in. And it's an interesting thing, because I've never felt that way in my life. The best way to put it is, when I'm with you, I'm not with me. You hear me? When I'm with you, I'm not with me. Because when I'm not with you, I am with me. And I'm not alone. I got a neighborhood watch sign right inside my ear. I'm a very shy person. If you're not talking with me about God or AA, I don't have nothing to say. I don't know why that is. I'm about as deep as a pie pan. And you could never drown in a pool of my life. So AA has been very good for me. I just love AA. I love what AA offers me if I'm willing to take the actions required to consummate the process that affords me 12 promises. If you're new, I've got to share with you, when I say I'm an alcoholic, there's a guy by the name of Dr. Silkworth that wrote The Doctor's Opinion in the big book, and then there's a few other fellows by the name of Reverend Sam Shoemaker, Father Ed Dowling, Dr. Harry Tebow, a psychiatric minister, who had a lot to do with ministering to Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob, our co-founders. And they gave a collection of symptoms that is in the big book in the 12 and 12. So when I'm saying to you that I'm an alcoholic, what I'm really suggesting is though that I am adult in my years, I'm childish, grandiose, and immature. As a going human concern, I'm maladjusted to life and in full flight from reality. My natural state is one of growing anxiety, depression, and fear, coupled with a desire for excitement, further complicated by an obsessive need for attention and approval, which renders me restless, irritable, and discontent with life. Now, emotionally, I'm known to be a bit on the sensitive side, meaning everything I hear and see I tend to take personal. And when it comes to suffering emotionally, I don't like it. And I don't do it alone. Mentally, my thought life is governed by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, which drive me to live according to selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, inconsiderate, resentful, and frightened motives. Socially, I am a bankrupt idealist and brooding perfectionist who lives defensively and guarded in fear of being found out. And in response to my fellows, I am quick to anger, slow to virtue, and I get a delicious effect from criticizing and judging every person I meet. My outstanding characteristic is defiance, and rebellion dogs my every step. Those are my finer qualities. Bearing that in mind, does anybody want to date? I'm looking for a job. Now, those are my collective symptoms of my condition before I drink. Silkworth talks about in the big book that ism becomes alcoholism when I drink alcohol if alcohol produces a sense of ease and comfort at once upon taking a few drinks, and I submit to you that's what happens to me medically. And then he talks about the other part, that once that sense of ease and comfort is established, I begin to be obsessed with that effect produced. And then there's another part Silkworth talks about in the big book about the allergy, the phenomenon of craving. The damnable part of this condition is when that sense of ease and comfort arrives, my body demands that I drink more because bodily I'm missing that enzyme that I'm required necessary to break alcohol ethyl hydroxide down into a harmless carbohydrate so I can get rid of it like everybody else does. That's not what I do. I develop a craving. Now, the book says that we have to give you the medical estimate, and that's what I did. Now, if you identify with that, I'll share part of my story so you'll understand how it affected me. I grew up feeling stupid, dumb, and ugly, and I don't know why. I'm that guy that when I was 8 or 9 years old, I looked in the mirror and I thought to myself, Butler, it's too bad, pal. It's going to be a long life. And it's going to be lonely because you are butt ugly, pal. There is something seriously wrong with you, but you don't dare ask. You might find out what it is. I became a recluse and quiet, and I started acting on these apparent feelings of difference. You see, I didn't know what alcoholism was. I had no idea what was wrong with me, and I'd been diagnosed many different psychiatric diagnostics out of the DSM-3 appropriately. My behavior would suggest they were right. So I didn't know. I felt like a flood in the fizzy factory was going on in my head, for Christ's sake. I didn't know what was going on. So I started acting retarded because I felt retarded. And by the 9th grade in school, I got put in the retarded class. Separated from everybody else. There was 863 kids in my high school graduating class. 12 of us were in the retarded class. And I ascended to the top. I had this obsession to be a number one guy. And I did. I was the leader of them retarded kids before they knew what was good for them. I remember telling them if they follow me, I'll take them places. And I took them retarded kids places they never should have ever went. I found out it was okay to go in the girls' bathroom and not get detention. So don't feel sorry for me. I had a great time in retarded class. Didn't have to study at all. I just had to sidestep studies, that's all. And the bullies. You know, the bullies like to pick on us retarded kids. And I didn't have too many resentments when I got sober. I just knew all their names, addresses, phone numbers. They would take us, their favorite thing to do is to catch me in gym class. And they would tape my ankles with duct tape. And then they would tie me to the rings and run me up to the ceiling and leave me there for the janitor to come find them. I know. I was still using that when I was 30 years old. That didn't make me an alcoholic, though it disturbed me a little. I was feeling like I didn't fit in, I didn't belong, I wasn't a part of, and something was really wrong with me. And there was a friend of mine named Tom. He felt sorry for us retarded kids. Now, you got to remember, I was never going to drink. Not because I understood it, but because I watched my dad drink and I saw what happened in the insanity of my alcoholic home. My dad was a redneck truck driver, drove truck for 32 years, never missed a day, took a lot of pills, drank a lot of booze, and loved to fight. So did my mom. I'm not going to tell you that story, though, because that'd be an Al-Anon talk. I'm here to tell you how alcohol affected me, but that did pertain to my growing up, but it had absolutely nothing to do with me becoming an alcoholic, in my opinion. I believe the only reason I'm an alcoholic is for the very fact of what Dr. Silkworth says in the doctor's opinion. Because my sister is an intense neurotic. She takes Valium, and It works, damn it. She takes her Valium, and her neuroses calms down. When I take Valium, I need to drink too. Kind of mellow things out, you know what I'm saying? I don't understand that sometimes, but I do today because I understand my condition known as alcoholism. When I was 17, I went to a party. I've never been to a party. I didn't mix. I don't talk to people. I have poor communication skills. Mike might walk up to me and say, "Wayne, how you doing?" Well, that creates a problem. I don't know. Now I got to figure out what's he want to know. Is he going to judge me if I tell him I'm feeling bad? If I tell him I feel like killing half the universe, will he like me anymore? I mean, there's a lot of things going on in my head when he asks me, how you doing? He just wants me to say, I'm okay, how are you? But I don't know how to do that stuff. I've never learned how to do that. So I went to this party when I was 17 years old. Tom took me, and I'm out there watching people dance and have fun and do what they were doing. And I'm standing up against a wall watching. And Tom brought over this long brown bottle with a red, white, and blue label on it, Budweiser. I drank it because it had that red, white, and blue label on it. I'm a patriot. My blood runs red, white, and blue. I drank it and I said, "Tom, that tastes terrible." Tom says, "That's okay, you'll get used to it." And I did. Now, what happened to me perhaps might happen to you. Maybe you have a different way of saying it. But I went to that party feeling sick. I was 6'3", weighed 120 pounds, feeling stupid, dumb, and ugly. No chest, no butt, just it was pathetic. I had a pimple right in the middle of my forehead. If you'd have popped it, my face would have come off. I just felt terribly aware of myself. Somewhere between 4 and 5 Budweisers, I got so good looking I couldn't stand it. I developed a chest and a butt. I went from 6'3", 120 pounds to 6'3", 240 pounds and bulletproof. And I looked out on the dance floor and I eyeballed me a blue-eyed blonde. I walked right up to her and asked her to dance. I didn't even know how that came out. It was like an out-of-body experience. And she said yes, and we danced. And later that night I found out sex included 2 people. That was kind of a bittersweet victory. I'd been having sex since I was 13. I didn't know that. To make a long story short, I experienced a blackout. I didn't know what a blackout was, but I had one. I came to the next morning and didn't know what happened. Tom told me I had a good time. That girl was 16 years old. I was 17. Found out later, my dad called me in and says, "We got a problem, pal." I said, "What's that?" He said, "That girl you was pregnant." And now, see, in the state of Illinois, the law reads, any boy 14 or older has consensual or non-consensual sex with a girl 17 or under, it's considered statutory rape. And I said, "Dad, what's that mean?" He says, "Probably 20 years to life, pal." I said, "Even if you're retarded?" And I found out if I married her, I wouldn't go to jail. So to make a long story short, I convinced her I fell in love. We went to Palmyra, Missouri, and got married, and we're coming back to Palmyra, Missouri. I'm in the front car with my mom and dad and her, me, and the baby-to-be. In the second car is her mom and dad and the shotgun, and life is grand. I'm on my way back to graduate from the retarded class of high school with my new wife and baby. Life is good. I was a little uncomfortable. I'm restless, irritable, and discontent. I'm the type of guy, I get geographical. When the heat's on, I want to burn somewhere else. And my brother was in the Navy, and he was in a place called Vietnam on an aircraft carrier. I didn't know where that was, but I knew it was a long way away from where I was. So I made a decision. I asked my dad if I could join the Navy. My dad says, "I don't know if they'll take a retarded kid, but let's go see." I know he loved me. So he took me down to the recruiter's office. I took the naval entrance exam, and I scored in the upper 3 percentile, which proved I was retarded but not stupid. But since I hadn't graduated high school yet, they put me in the Naval Reserve, which meant I had to wait a year before I got activated so I could graduate school. So I graduated school. We had that little baby. And just before I turned 18 years of age, I went to a party, and I drank for the second time. Now, in the big book, Silkworth talks about how we alcoholics experience strange mental twists preceding a lapse into drinking. You're going to hear a couple of them. I went to this party, and I saw Budweiser, and I made the decision not to drink it because I didn't want no more babies. And I saw this bottle of tequila. I'd never had tequila before. I didn't know what it was, so I drank the whole bottle. And Tom says, "You better watch out. That stuff catch up to you." And I didn't know what he meant by that. I do now. Means I'm going to talk to God in person. I sat there and had a conversation with God, and I told God all the things that I'm not going to tell you about my mom and my dad and their drinking, my brother, my sister, and their behavior with me, my uncle, my brother-in-law. I told him all the hateful, spiteful things that I wanted to get even for. And I asked God what he thought I ought to do, and I heard God tell me to go home and kill my family. That's what I heard. So apparently in a blackout, I went to my mother's house, and I went in, blew all the pilot lights out, turned all the gas up, and went on the front porch and waited for my family to die. I came to that morning between 5 and 6 a.m. with my mother kicking me ferociously about the head and the shoulders. Apparently, my mother thought I had died from the gas because she had a bad headache and everybody else did too. I'd forgot to close the windows. So we went to the doctor. We went to a psychiatrist. And that psychiatrist gave me a series of exams. I took those exams, and here was my diagnosis. Doctor told us that I was an irreversible psychopath. I have no conscience and no remorse. I will never feel the affection of love, nor will I be able to bond with a human being. They suggested that I might be the most likely next homicidal psychopath from the state of Illinois, which would make you sick if you heard that yourself. I kind of got excited about it. I did. I got to tell the truth. And my mother conveyed to that doctor that I was in the Navy. So they found a good place to send a person with my criteria. Sent me to Vietnam. And I went there at 18, and I came back when I was 21. I never drank a drop the whole time I was gone. Those first 2 times I drank got me nervous. And I saw people doing drugs, but I made the decision I didn't want to get addicted. I saw people getting addicted to drugs, and I didn't want that headache. So I just walked away, didn't do any drugs at all. I came back 21 years old. I had 3 rows of ribbons on my chest. I was proud of my military career. I found my niche. I was a good military person. I was a great sailor. My shoes were spit shined. You never caught me without spit shine shoes. I didn't buy Corfam. Thought that was pretty stupid, because I'm a real Navy guy, see. My boxer shorts were pressed, just in case. Well, I was assigned to a destroyer in San Diego. I became the captain's driver, and I played baseball for the 7th Fleet. Basically, my life was good. I found the niche where I fit. And then one day, the captain asked me to babysit his kids. No big deal. I said, yes, sir, I'd be happy to. I'd be proud. I mean, if your captain asks you to babysit your kids, you're going to do it. And so I went and got the ship's company car, and on my way to his house to pick up his kids, a thought occurred to me. Wayne, let's stop and get a 6-pack of Bud. We haven't drank for 3 years. And prior to that, we've only drank twice. And nothing really bad happened. First time we drank, we brought a baby into the world. That's a good thing. Second time we drank, we saved our family's life. So I stopped and bought that 6-pack and drank it. Now, getting this strange feeling I was doing something pretty stupid, I put his kids in the car to go get another 6-pack of Bud. Now I went into a blackout. Now blackouts, if you've had them, you understand. I came out of that blackout with my captain about 2 inches from my nose, screaming, "Where are my kids?" And I'd be damned if I could tell him where I put them. And that really made him mad. And I was trying to remember, and he just was getting madder every minute. And so we did some research, and we found them. You know, blackouts are interesting things. We don't always do bad things in blackouts. We just can't remember what we've been doing. And I just happened to forgot where I put his kids. No big deal. They were safe. We found them over at his sister's house. That's where I took them. At least that's how I tried to explain it to the captain. What's the big deal? What are you mad about? Your kids are okay. I can understand you being upset if I hurt them, but they're fine. He says, you forgot where you put my kids. I said, but they're okay. I mean, I could not grasp his anger. And so he restricted me to shit. To make a long story short, I jumped ship because he told me I couldn't. I mean, it's like when you're defiant and rebellious like I am by nature, when you tell me I can't, that's the very next thing I've got to try to do. It's like putting a wet paint sign on a park bench and telling me I can't go check it out. I got to know. To make a long story short, I got drunk that night, snuck back on the ship, and by the time I went and saw him Monday morning, I'd been drunk a total of 4 times in my life. And the captain said, you have to go to treatment at Balboa Naval Station with Commander Persh. You are a chronic alcoholic. And my mind exploded. I said, you're crazy. I'm a lot of things. Look, when you took me, you read the paperwork. You knew I had problems. I said, but I ain't no alcoholic. And so he said either go to treatment or go home, and they discharged me. To make a long story short, I went home to a wife and 2 kids. I was there a little while, and Charles Manson had been on TV all week. And my wife looked in my eyes, and she says, I've seen that look somewhere before. And I said, what do you mean? She says, I've seen that look somewhere. And she moved out that night and never came back. She still won't come near me. I made amends to her in my first year of sobriety. That was almost 20 years ago. She still won't talk to me. She's absolutely convinced I am the reincarnation of a dead Charles Manson who's still alive. I'm powerless over other people's thinking. And she left, and I married my second wife. To make a long story short, my drinking had now possessed me. You see, when I was 17 years old, I didn't understand what alcoholism was, and I didn't know what alcohol did for me. Alcohol produced an effect for me that was so powerful and so baffling that it condemned me to drink until I either die or go insane, and I didn't understand that. But what it means for me is when I drink, I get this illusionary sensation of being just like you. I actually feel normal. I can function. I can be a part of. I can get out there and sell stuff. I can join the crowd. I can be a part of the human race. And that's where I want to be. I mean, my God, Art just took his 20-year cake. I could not have talked to him 20 years ago. I'd had to find something wrong with him because you like him. I can't handle that. Something's wrong with me if you like him. Now, that has no correlation with reality at all, does it? But that's how my mind worked when I got here. But if I drink 4.5 Budweisers, I'd have gave him his cake and convinced him he's known me for 20 years. That's how I am. See, alcohol produces that effect, and that's the effect I want, because on the natch I don't feel good enough to be with you. But the bad part of that is when I drink and I get right where I want to be, I don't know it. Chuck Chamberlain talked about unconscious separation, and alcohol has the seeming effect to bring me into conscious reality, though it's a fantasy. The book says I'm maladjusted to life and in full flight from reality. When I drink Budweiser, I land and I appear to be adjusted. Then my body says, Wayne, now that we're A-OK, pal, let's have 20 more. And that's what happens to me. And then I drink beyond the point of reality. I come to in various situations that are reprehensible. My kids, I'm breaking promises to them. My wife is calling the saloon, and Larry's telling her I'm not there, of course. We're getting evicted every 89 days because I can't pay the rent or won't pay the rent. The gas and lights is being shut off in the dead of winter, 20 below zero, because I can't pay the rent. I can't pay the gas bill, the light bill. And that's the way our life is, and I swore it would never be like that for me. My daughter caught me breaking into her piggy bank. That's a terrible feeling when you're trying to convince your daughter you broke it putting money in. Kids aren't stupid, you know. And I remember there at the end I couldn't remember because I had a lot of blackouts. My wife was asking me where I'd been. I couldn't tell her. She'd ask me, who you been with? And I'd say, I don't think I've been with anybody. But I don't know because I blacked out. I really don't know what I did. And of course she thought I was copping out. I really didn't know. And one night I came home about 2 in the morning, and the thing that I said would never happen in my family happened. I said that we would never ever have to have the kids come down at 2 a.m. to settle a fight to decide which one of us they were going to go live with in a divorce at 2 a.m. Because you see, that's what my life was like. And at the end of my drinking, that's exactly what it was. 3 times a week, my kids would be marched down the steps to decide which parent they were going to go with in a divorce. And then there at the very end, I remember that night I came home and my wife asked me where I'd been, and I couldn't tell her. She wouldn't leave me alone. That's how I saw it. Kids were woken up. The kids had come down the steps and came into the room. She was screaming at me. I was screaming at her. I was telling the kids to shut up, and then my brain exploded. I remember putting my wife down on the floor. I remember putting a .357 to her head, and I remember pulling the trigger. And the gun should have went off. It just didn't. I still got that bullet at home. It's a .357 hollow point. My sponsor would never let me throw it away. He said, you need to remember that. And she left me anyway. Now, I sat there and bawled like a baby for 3 days. She left. I sat in the living room by the door and bawled like a baby and made deals with God. I told God if he brought him back, I'd never do that again. I told God if he brought my wife and kids back, I'd sell my guns. I told God that if he brought my wife and family back, I'd go to church. I'd take the oath. I told him the big one. I said, I'll get a job. 3 days later, there was a knock at my door. You know who it was? It was my wife, with children in tow. I opened the door, and she says, can we come home? And I remember looking at her saying, well, I don't know. You hurt me when you left. I'm the best thing that ever happened to you. And if you'll give me your word you'll never hurt me like that again, you can come home. Now, if you don't think we need Al-Anon, we need Al-Anon. I'm not making fun of my wife or the incident. I'm just telling you that's alcoholism. And it's an ugly, ugly disease. The book refers to it as a spiritual disease, one that affects everybody about us, and yes, it does. I don't share that story for drama. I just know there's people out there in that room who had similar experiences and worse. And I want you to know that we get through it, we get over it, and we get to do things for other people that free us from the burdens of our past. And if I didn't know that, I couldn't be here with you to sober tonight. AA wouldn't mean nothing to me. You would just be another gathering of people who have judged me. Because I've been to the best of them that judge me. Though you do judge me, you don't kick me out. That's the kick. That's the big thing. See, I found out that there is judgment here. But there's acceptance that rises above it. You see, I'm worthy of judgment. That's what my sponsor said. My sponsor said, you know what you did? I said, well, yeah. He says, well, they should judge you. He said, but you'll have an opportunity to make it right. Well, that led me to AA, and I want to talk about that, and I've talked enough about that. I think you might be convinced I'm an alcoholic. I didn't know that, though. If you'd have told me to go to AA, I'd have said, well, that's nice for you, but I'm not an alcoholic. I'm crazy, yes. I've got problems. I've been diagnosed. I've been in psychiatric wards, but I ain't no alcoholic. And I went to sleep in this abandoned car because I had nowhere else to go. I slept behind a place called Harvey's Restaurant, and I mopped and waxed his dining room floors for 2 sausage sandwiches on whole wheat toast, and that's what led me into AA, though you would never figure it out. One night this old guy came in. He stood about 5 foot tall, I guess, and he had this whiskey nose. If you're ever in the Midwest, wintertime's tough on alcoholics, and to get that whiskey nose going on, it gets all swollen up on the end, and that's like pockmarked bomb landings on the end, and then the blood veins start to show, and he had them. Harvey, I mean, I'd be mesmerized by his nose. His veins would be pumping, and I'd just stare at him. And then one night he came in and he handed me this brass coin. On one side it had this prayer, God grant me something, and on the other side it had these 2 A's. And he said, here, I'm going to give you an address. I want you to go see some friends of mine. They're going to help you. Now, I hear things funny too. What I heard him say is if I go to this address, they'll give me something to eat, some pocket dough, and maybe a few packs of tailor-made Pall Mall cigarettes. If he had said I was going to AA, I'd have never went, because I'm not an alcoholic. I went there anyway, and it was in the worst part of town, right down by my saloon. And this building was standing over there where they was tearing down other buildings, and on the side of it said, building condemned, do not enter. Right underneath it was another sign with an arrow pointing into the cellar. It said AA 16th Street, welcome. Don't do that to a newcomer. I didn't know what to do. The cellar windows were painted black. You couldn't see in. They couldn't see out. There was a light bulb hanging on a cord, and it was flickering from a short. And he said, if the light is on, go in. They're waiting for you. The only thing missing was the Kool-Aid, for crying out loud. So I raced down there before I had time to think about it and went charging in that door. And my introduction into AA was uneventful, sort of. I failed to notice that the doorway was only 5'10"ish. And I caught it full on at the eyebrow, and it literally knocked me off my feet. And I slid into my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now you got to picture this. 6 feet inside the door is this round table with 6 or 7 old people conducting a meeting waiting to die. And I slid between 2 of them. And this one looks down, he gets up from his chair and he goes just like this. And then he says, slide right on in here, dummy. Something to do with the door. So we got a wrench to fit every nut that comes in the door. And I didn't like him right away. And I didn't think he had any right to talk to me like that. But the next thing out of his mouth saved his life. He says, I'm going to be your sponsor. Now, you might not understand why. But that's what kept me coming to meetings, and I'll tell you why. I played baseball. Sponsors pay for everything. Next thing out of his mouth is, if you'll meet me tomorrow morning, I'll buy you breakfast. He didn't say we're going to a meeting. See, he's an alcoholic, and he knew he didn't need to tell me that. He just needed to take me in tow and take me where he was going. I had nowhere else to go. My calendar wasn't exactly full. And he said, if you'll meet me tomorrow morning, I'll buy you breakfast. And I said, I'll be there. I'll go anywhere for free food. And he says, don't be late. I said, don't worry. I got that central dumpster time. Y'all know what that is? You know, if you've been living in the dumpsters, you got to develop an intuitive clock for when the dumpster pickup truck's coming. You got to know. You can't sleep past it. Worked on the street. And I met him, and he took me to breakfast over at a place called the Blandine Brady Street Group of Alcoholics Anonymous in Davenport, Iowa. He took me up 12 steps, naturally, and into this big room with more round tables. Come to find out they were round so the devil couldn't corner you. And on these round tables were these bowls of donuts the jail refused because they were so hard they could have been considered weapons. And I was really resentful that I had to eat them. I could barely get them softened up enough in the coffee that was terrible, by the way. And he said, sit there, shut up, and eat them. And for the next 5 years, I followed that guy around. Hated his guts. God, I hated him. I hated him. I could well it up right now if I thought about that first few weeks I followed him around. He made a fool out of me. He made me wash coffee cups. He made me mop floor. He made me clean the toilet. I didn't even do that in my own house. He said, it'll keep you sober. I ain't sober. Well, it'll get you sober. I don't want to get sober. Clean the goddamn toilets. He had a way of shutting me up. And I followed around for 5 years, and I didn't want what they had. They were happy and smiling. I didn't believe I could have that. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't know what was going on. But I did follow them around, and I drank almost every day. I drank sometimes before meetings. I drank sometimes after meetings. And if they didn't have a guard at the door, they call them greeters, I could sneak it in the bathroom and get some during the meeting. You know, they said it helps if you don't drink. And you know, they never kicked me out of AA because I was drinking. You know, if you ever find a group of AAs where a drinking drunk ain't welcome at a meeting, that's not AA. That's a gathering of people who forgot where they came from. But you do got to behave while you're here. That's the problem. I can drink or I can behave, but I can't do both. And I'd come into my meeting and I'd be drinking and they'd say, sit down, and I'd say, no. Shut up. I don't have to. Leave. You can't make me. Because that's my theme song. I don't want to. I don't have to. You can't make me. Doesn't that just give you a certain feeling inside, like you'd like to try? See? And I remember I came into my home group one night and I'd been drinking and I was mouthing off to my sponsor and he said, shut up, sit down. And then I said, no, you can't make me. And they said, leave. And I said, you can't make me. And I found out they could. 4 guys my size, each one grabbed an arm and a leg and they talked some goofy newcomer into opening up the front door. And all I remember is flying right by him and being thrown right out in the middle of 16th Street. And then I heard this voice behind me saying, keep coming back. And I did. If you came here for a step talk or something like that, that's not why I'm here. I'm supposed to just share my experience. And I'm not here to tell you how to do AA. That's not my job. I'm just here to share with you that I've taken the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, that I sponsor other alcoholics, and I've been recovered. I've been restored to sanity one day at a time, in my opinion. They did their job. They took me with them. And I was a handful. I was a case. And I don't think no different than most people. I was just kind of sick. My sponsor used to follow me around and whisper, summertime. It's dead of winter. Summertime, dummy. And finally I asked him, I said, why are you doing that to me? Why are you saying summertime all the time? He says, it's simple. Some are sicker than others. And then he walked away. He used to baffle me. And then he'd take me over to that think slogan on the wall, and he'd say, you see that? And I'd say, well, yeah, it can't help but you got my face right in it. He'd say, for you, that means don't. And then he'd take me to meetings like this. Now, back in Illinois, this is a convention. My home group was about 15 people, sometimes 30 on a big week. And he'd take me to these big speaker meetings around the county. He'd take me where there was 300 people. And I remember this one night, they had the chair set up just like that, only they were joined in the middle. And my sponsor and his cronies, you know, the old timers, they were in the front row. They put us newcomers in the second row so they didn't have to see the disease. At least that was my opinion. And there was a speaker up here talking, you know, lying, just like I am. At least that's what I told my best friend Jim, who I'd known 3 minutes. I was sitting there, I felt the need to critique the speaker. So I was critiquing him. I was saying he's a liar. Jim, he couldn't have done all that stuff. He's just up there getting attention. He couldn't have drank like that. He'd have been dead 25 years ago. If he'd have strained a can to heat through wheat bread, it would have burned his clothes, for Christ. I'm just on and on and on. And I guess my sponsor heard about enough of that. And he turned around and he looked in my eye in front of 300 people. And here's what I heard him say. "Shut up, you goddamn loser. You ain't got a thing we want to hear. And if we determine that you do, we'll come out to your car out there behind Harvey's restaurant and we'll toot your little horn and we'll invite you in. Now sit there and shut up or leave." That's what I heard him say. Come to find out, what he really said was this. "Shh." Maybe you don't hear like that. What allowed me to stop drinking, you see, I tried to quit drinking. I could not quit. I'm going to tell you something. I have tried everything that's in the big book and some things that aren't to quit. And I was at my home group. I'd been dry 3 days, and my condition was untenable. I was bawling like a baby. And there was this old guy named Huey that, God rest his soul. He used to walk around my home group, and if I ever thought I was crazy, he was one of the goofiest human beings I ever saw. He about 6'5", weighed 320 pounds, and he always wore this insulated construction helmet liner with earmuffs down, year-round. And he'd walk around the groups, and this is exactly the way he was. I'm not making fun of him. Yeah. Wonderful and exciting things are happening today. He'd never tell you what they were. And that's all he ever said. They'd call on him to share. "Yeah, I'm Huey. Yeah. Wonderful and exciting things are happening today." And then he'd leave. And I just know he's drinking. And I'm sitting there at my home group bawling like a baby. And I have made the decision to kill myself. And I want you to hear something. When a person like me makes that decision, I had a sense of relief. God, it's finally over. I didn't tell nobody. I'm going home, and I'm doing it because I can't take it. I cannot take it. You guys, I'm so happy for you, but I can't quit drinking. And Huey walked over to me, sat down beside me, and done what you do. He says, "What's the matter, pal?" And I said, "Huey, I can't quit drinking. I'm tired of it." And I'm bawling. And Huey passed me on the shoulder and he says, "You know what? I understand how you feel. I've been where you've been. And you're right. I can't quit drinking." Now I had 3 days. And I looked at him and I said, "My God, Huey, how many days do you have?" And my mind immediately thought he'd go drink with me that night. I said, "How many days you got?" And Huey looked at me and he says, "Oh, I got 31 years. And I got it. He says, "We can't quit drinking. There's not an alcoholic on God's earth that can quit drinking. Lots of people can quit drinking, but they're not alcoholics." He says, "An alcoholic can't quit drinking. What we do is we go one day at a time, 24 hours without a drink. And we can do that by reaching out to another sick and suffering alcoholic and sharing our experience, strength, and hope." And he says, "For me, I've been doing that one day at a time for 31 years. And he says, if you ever meet someone who's quit drinking, watch out." And I became weary of that. And you know what? I came to believe I could stop drinking one day at a time. And I submit to you, I haven't had a drink since. 19 years, 5 months, and 2 weeks. Since Huey said, "I understand how you feel," I can't quit drinking either. And if you're new in this room, I understand how you feel. And we can't quit drinking, not if we're alcoholic. But we found a way, Art's found a way, if I can use you, one day at a time to not drink 20 years. I'm in the class of 77 too. If I don't drink between now and November, I'll have 20 years too. But you know what? I could drink, and I'm going to submit something to you. If I drink tonight, don't judge me. Don't say, Jesus Christ, what a wonderful talker or a bad talker. Too bad he couldn't work the program. Don't judge me. Come 12-step me. And if you wait for me to call, I might die first. See, they know about us in the old days. They came to us and said, you want to come back? And if I drink tonight or tomorrow, you will know why. It's in the big book. Wilson put it in the big book. He said the reason an alcoholic drinks again is because they failed to enlarge and perfect their spiritual condition. Everything else about my life is an extension of that fact. If I continue to develop and strengthen my spiritual condition, I will develop a spiritual defense against the first drink, and I will not need to take a drink to calm that obsession of the mind to be normal. And you know, that obsession was insane because it was unconscious. And you know, sobriety is unconscious too. There were so many days I didn't think I was getting this thing. My sponsor would tell me, you're getting it, you're hard-headed, but you're getting it, pal. And I wouldn't believe him because I was depressed and I felt terrible. I'm going to tell you something that happened to me. 2 more minutes? It's like 5 till. Okay, I want to tell you this because I want to. Something interesting, if you're new, I guess the reason I want to share this is it might happen to you too. During my first year of sobriety, I did everything my sponsor suggested that he did and was still doing and for me to do. I had my head so far up his butt that he needed turn signals on his hips to keep from breaking my neck if he should turn sudden. And then an interesting thing happened to me. After 1 year of continuous sobriety, I looked around the room at them old-timers, I looked at my sponsor, and I realized I'd outgrown them. I came to realize they were the old wave of AA. Get out of our way so we can take care of business. And I would look at Bill and Bob's picture on the wall, and I would imagine mine floating up between it. And so I dismissed him. And from my 2nd year to my 7th year, I did the dance of death. Steps 1, 12, and 13. By the way, ladies, if any of you are in your first year, and I come up to you after the meeting and say, hey, would you like to go have coffee and talk about God? Run! Chuck Chamberlain talked about unconscious separation and conscious unity. In my 7th year of sobriety, I surrendered. I don't have the time to go into that, nor should I. I surrendered in my 7th year of sobriety. I weighed 146 pounds, and I had a psychiatrist told me I needed to take lithium and amitriptyline and some other drugs because I was chemically imbalanced and manic depressive and probably going to kill a lot of people if I kept going the way I was going. My sponsor got mad at me and he says, why don't you try the steps, stupid? He didn't butter it up. He says, why don't you try the steps? You've been trying it your way. Why don't you try the steps of AA? And I'm going to submit something to you. I didn't believe him. I thought I was a little more complex than that. And what I did was I got the big book and the 12 and 12 and some information based in that, and I took the 12 steps by the directions based in the big book with the amplification of the steps in the 12 and 12, and that's all I did. And something happened to me. By my 9th year of sobriety, I weighed 242 pounds and my depression was gone. I'm glad I listened to my sponsor. Now that doctor, now I'm not being judgmental, I'm telling you what happened to me, my experience. That doctor told me not to go to AA and listen to them people because they're not doctors. I got a bit of a resentment about that. I'm glad I didn't listen to him, and I'm glad I listened to my sponsor because I've been free of that depression for 12 years. It's a wonderful thing. And I don't got to take nothing. Now, I have bad days, bad times, but when I'm with you, I'm not with me. I get over it. And I sponsor enough people that I get to see how sick I really was. My life becomes free. I got to stop. I hope if you're new, you heard it. The hope. I have hope. I'm nothing like I was. I'm not what I probably should be just yet, but I'm working on it. The power of 12 suggested steps produced an unconscious effect in my mind that created a spiritual defense against the first drink, and I submit to you that if I continue to do steps 10, 11, and 12 every day, that I will not need to take a drink to feel normal. And I won't, the obscenity, the insanity, and the obsession won't kick in. And I get to be free to come and go and do and be as I please. And if I don't get nothing more than that, I'm happy. 5 years ago, a newcomer come up to me, and here's what he said to me. You're a loser. You ain't got nothing. You don't own a car. I said, nope. You ain't married. I said, nope. You ain't got a girlfriend. I said, nope. And I thought he better stop right there. And he said, "You're broke." I said, "Yeah." He says, "You got nothing." And I said, "I've got it all, pal. And you'll never understand that unless you take the steps of AA and understand it." And see, some people believe that if you don't have money, power, property, prestige, you failed at life. And I suggest to you that if I have the power of God and I have a spiritual defense against the first drink and I'm doing loving things for people I don't even know, I've got it. If I can accept it. And that's the trouble, is surrendering and accepting my lot in life. And I've accepted my lot in life, and I'm free. I'm free of those anxious pangs of apartness and the fear of meeting new people. Life is good. Thanks for letting me share.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.